Welcome to the Enable Growth channel. Hello, welcome to Enable Growth. It's been a while, but we're back, and today I want to talk about something that is very important to me and it's important to us as we help businesses to grow and achieve success. Now, I had a meeting with a client this week. Over the past 3 months, we've been reviewing their digital marketing strategy and looking at auditing everything they've been doing over the last 2 years to see where there are gaps and also see where they can align it with the overall growth strategy of the business. This is a bank in Ghana. So I met with the director for marketing and we had a little conversation. One of the challenges they've had this year is that they are struggling to find the budget to execute everything that they have in their battle plan for the year. And so obviously they are not growing and they know that it's already August, and if they don't really reset, they will end the year without achieving the growth that they target that they set for the year. So we went through the battle plan, which I was a part of. We had a boot camp at the beginning of the year, and I contributed to the development of the battle plan. Now, what's happening is that because they don't have the budget, they are struggling to execute that. So we had a conversation, and one of the big challenges that we found was that obviously because they don't have the budget, they cannot execute this, and so they put it on the shelf. So we went thinking, and then I asked them, how many people do you employ? Then they said about 5,000 people. And I said, okay, that's fine. Now, I know some of the people employed by this bank, and being very active online, I know some of these people are very, very active online. So I threw out to them this whole concept of employee-generated content. And the first question they asked me, what's this employee-generated content that you're talking about, or what we call EGC as we go on? So I had to explain to them what it was and how it was a good option to embrace to try and deal with the challenge that they have with budget, so that the campaign is not cancelled altogether, but they are able to execute the campaign riding on the wings of the influence and the reach of their employees online. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I think it's something that a lot of businesses need to embrace, especially in a year where in Ghana, things are difficult. Businesses don't have a lot of budget, let's be honest. And so they're going to have to look at all options to generate money to run campaigns, because the business cannot cease marketing simply because it doesn't have budget. You need to find a way of still marketing and promoting your brands, the business itself, and everything else. So let's talk about this, and hopefully we can learn some lessons together. Now, employee-generated content is not new. This is not something that's new. I'm sure you heard of UGC, user-generated content. Okay, I'll explain what that is in a minute. But employee-generated content is any form of online content, predominantly social media, photos, videos, blog posts, and things like that, created and shared by your current employees. Created and shared by your current employees. Sometimes it's done by previous employees who still have something to say about your brand or your business, but predominantly it's by current employees, okay, about your brand or organization, and then it is published on their social media platforms and communities in which they are active. Okay, so that's what it is. They take your brand, create content around your brand, take your business, create content around your business, and they put it on their platforms. Okay, put it on their platform and in communities like WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, Facebook groups that they are part of. Put them there to promote, or maybe sometimes if they are unhappy, they would push other agenda. But essentially, it's almost always to promote. So that's what we call employee-generated content. Now, how does it differ from? Sorry, I got some notes here, just to remind me of where I am in this. It differs from user-generated content largely because in this case, it is generated by people who are your employees. User-generated content is generated by just anybody at all who uses your product, uses your brand. or uses your services as an organization. But in this case, it's generated by people who are your employees. So that's the big difference in there. So what are some of the benefits? Now, what you will find is that in the world we live in today, in the connected society that we live in, people know almost where everybody works. So if you're friends with me on social media, you're likely to know what I do, people I work with, where I work, and things like that. Now, they look up to people who are employed by the organization, who are employed by the brand, to speak with authenticity and with trust, because they know that you have an experience, not just as a user of the product or the brand, but as somebody who is inside. You are an insider, and they expect to be able to speak with authenticity and trust. So that's a big benefit. If organizations are able to get their employees to speak, create content that speaks authentically and also speak with trust about their brands, that's a big plus. So that's a big benefit. It also generates increased engagement because people who know who you are, believe what you post. They know who you are, they know what you're confident, they believe what you post. I'll give you an example. If I work for a bank, people know me as a good financial banker or whatever. They will depend on me for tips on investment. If I'm a good investment banker, they will depend on me for tips on investment. Same if I work on the mortgage desk. Okay, they will depend on me for tips on mortgage and things like that. Okay, and so when I post, people will engage with that content. Plus, with all these people also sharing your content and their followers, the people within their network also sharing that content, engaging with that content, then it means that content you've got, that brand gets a lot more engagement. I hope you get what I mean. Okay. It also is great. One benefit is that you have employee advocacy. We always have to work towards getting our employees to a place where, having experienced the organization, having experienced the brand, they can advocate for the brand. Okay. So they are empowered and enhanced, and somehow their roles are enhanced as brand ambassadors. Okay, so they can advocate a lot more for the brand. Okay, it's also cost efficient. Like I said, the beginning of this conversation, the genesis of this conversation, is that this bank that I'm talking about doesn't have the budget to execute a campaign we have planned. A campaign we would know would deliver results that would push it further towards achieving the goals that they have for the year. So it's important that you look at it as a cost-saving strategy as well. Now let's look at some of the best practices in executing this. The first thing I want to say is that you need to develop and roll out an EGC, employee-generated content strategy or plan. You don't do things ad hoc. Don't do things blind. Have a plan. So as a marketing team, sit down, put together a strategy. How are we going to roll this out? What do we want to achieve? How are we going to roll this out? How are we going to measure the way that it's performing? And also how are we going to ensure that we keep empowering our employees to be able to deliver what we want them to deliver, so that we'll keep generating content. Otherwise, you will get stuck at some point. Okay, so the strategy is very, very important. Then number 2, create a culture of sharing. I know, often when I run trainings for organizations, I ask them, how many people in this organization share your flyers when you put them, or they even go to, or even visit your social media platforms? Often it's less than 5%. Now that's a no-no. If you work for an organization, you have to be passionate enough to be active on the organization's social media platforms so that you're liking and sharing their content. Okay? Now that's the beginning. But you need to create a culture of content generation by employees. Now the way you do that is that you have the agenda set right from the top. So all the way from the CEO, this is driven through the organization. And people are encouraged and empowered to create content around the brand and around the organization to share. It's a culture you create. It doesn't happen overnight. But this culture can be created. It is possible. You just need to make sure that you are doing it in a way that it's effective, okay, and it's structured and there's a hook, there's something guided. Okay, so it's not being done blind. That's very, very important. And then the next one is identify and recruit employees with large loyal audience online. Yes, we want everybody to participate in this, but let's face it. In most organizations, there are some people who are very, very huge, who are big online. People you can call, whether it's like macro influencers or even micro influencers or even nano influencers. People who are very active online. And these are people you need to identify and target, to rope in, to recruit them to be part of this. So they become the champions. They become the easy champions of the organization. Okay? So you need to really do that. These are people that you need to reach out to. So beyond creating the culture, you need to reach out to these people and actively recruit them, get them involved in this process. Okay? And then provide guidance and tools. You cannot leave your employees to go out there and be creating content without any guidance, without any rules. Okay? And also without any tools. So you need to get them to work within a framework, within some rules, within some guidelines. They need to even understand how they can use the brand logo, for example. They need to know, for example, the tone of voice that they need to use. They need to also understand, also, for example, where there are issues, for example, about like people questioning some of the things that the content that they create, how that should be channeled back to the business. Okay? How they even listen and are able to respond to even trolls, for example. These are all important. Okay? So you need to provide guidance and also tools. Tools include even some creatives, some images, some videos based content that you give them for them to use. Okay, so it's very, very important. I know an organization that I did a bit of work for where they even have a studio where employees can go and create content. So they have the cameras, everything there. Employees can go there and create content and push it out. Okay, so they are giving them the tools to be able to create this content. Let me say this. The churches do this best. Okay. Like I often say, there's a lot to learn from churches when it comes to brand building. Let me give this example and give, a plug to one of my friends, Maximus, and his team who are big behind what they do on for ICGs when it comes to Greater Works. Now, when it's Greater Works, during that 1 week or even the month before and after Greater Works, just check online the amount of content that members create, how passionate they are, and how much share of voice all of a sudden that event has online. This is what we're talking about. And what they do is that they empower the people. They even allow their cameramen, their media team to be out there taking selfies for people, taking pictures for people and posting them. So they are giving them the tools, the resources to be able to create content. And that's very, very important. The next one is recognize and reward contributions. It's very, very important. You need to run, the strategy should be such that it becomes competitive and becomes kind of like a little bit of a banter even amongst peers. Who is creating the most engaging content? Who is getting the most whatever? And reward people who are creating great content. Identify this content, these pieces of content, reward them and set them as the standard for other employees to follow. That's very, very important. Okay. The last one to say is that ensure brand alignment. Very, very important. That's the last one. Now, the reason why this is important is that as people create content, because there's very little control over it. You need to make sure that they don't go too far from the brand guidelines, because everybody understands the brand. And as they create content, you need to make sure that the content always aligns with the brand and also aligns with the corporate values of the organization. Otherwise, you could go too far and you start getting into trouble. You can't give people too much liberty. That leads me on to the last one, which I say monitor, listen, measure, and optimize performance. Okay, you've heard me say monitor, measure, and optimize performance often. Now, added the word listen. You need to monitor. Be active online, monitoring and listening to what's going on. See what content we are pushing out there. Reshare some of them. Okay, we reshare user-generated content in the same way. Reshare employee-generated content. Also, So understand what's going on. Okay, know where the challenges are, know what's working, know what's not working, so that you can be able to influence what they are doing. Not to dictate what they're doing, but influence and be able to have control over what is being posted. These are very, very important. Okay. Finally, let me say this. Like I said from the onset, the reason for this conversation with the client is because they are struggling to find the money to run a campaign that we have planned from the beginning of the year. Now, budget alone should not be a showstopper. There should be other ways for you to find the money or find the resources to be able to run the campaign. Now, if you think about it, for an organization that employs over 5,000 people, organically, you should be able to reach a couple of millions of people through your employees. If you can get every employee to tag along and participate in this whole campaign, okay? So employee-generated content is a very, 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 very viable and very, very good means of achieving success for a campaign. You don't always have to depend only on your budget. You can drive a lot of success for a campaign, increase your reach, engagement, and also performance through employee-generated content. I hope this helps. The question I will go for you is, has your company got an employee-generated content strategy? If you haven't, contact us and we'll be able to help you do that for free. Thank you very much. See you on the next one.